welcome you back to AquaLocate Live from Texas. We're going to continue a little bit of our discussion that we had last week about dry well versus failed well. And then we'll talk a little bit about how some of the examples of where the AquaLocate technology was used for successful wells or ultimately successful wells. I'd really like to know, if you're watching, I'd like to know where you're watching from. If you think you need help from us, let us know or contact us, and we'd love to help you. We can determine if you actually need our help or if you just need some advice about your project. So again, to recap the dry versus failed well, in our experience, and we've been doing this for about 25 years. My name's Ervin, and I'm one of the founders of AquaLocate. So for more than 25 years, we've been helping people all over the world find the right place to drill their next well or solve their existing well water problems. Often, if not most of the time, when a newly drilled well is called dry, it's often not dry. It's just the processes that are used to drill water wells are often excessively damaging to the aquifer, which causes the aquifer not to produce water for some period of time, sometimes for a long period of time or permanently. And then because of that, the driller will say, well, this well isn't producing water, and then just tell you it's dry, and then you have to decide where you're going to drill your next well. Again, in our instance, our well driller said our well was productive, original well back in the 90s, late 90s, and it produced water for a while, and then it started to reduce production over about a year or two, and ultimately produced less than 1/10 of a gallon a minute. And then after some research, we found out that they actually drilled the well in a way that caused damage over time, minimizing the flow of water into the well, and ultimately we had to find a new place to drill, which, yes, we did use our technology that we have to find that place, and then we had a different driller drill the well, and we kind of controlled the process a little bit, which helps a lot. Then we found a good aquifer that produced a lot of water. Now, let me talk a little bit about that. Sometimes people think they need a lot of water for a water well, and I want to discuss briefly how much water you really need. So the average household in the United States uses somewhere between 200 and 400 gallons a day. Now that's inside the house. Obviously, if you have animals to water, that's additional water that you might need. Now it's not a lot. A horse on a really hot time of year might drink up to 20 gallons a day. Cows probably similar. So depending on how many large animals you have, you need to multiply that by 10 to 20 gallons a day. But if you're looking at your home is 200 to 400 gallons a day. A well that produces half a gallon a minute is producing 720 gallons a day. Now that's assuming your well produces an actual half a gallon a minute. You can easily support your home with that as long as you manage the water right. We can help you with that. If you'd like to know a little bit more about that, we'll give you some ideas. We have a real simple design that we put together a long time ago about how to create a storage system. It's quite easy for you to do it yourself. If you're a little bit mechanical and do a little bit of plumbing, a little bit of wiring, it's really not that difficult. You don't need to pay somebody thousands of dollars to put a storage system together. Anyway, if your well produces like ours did, our second well, it produced 2 gallons a minute, which, again, a lot of people would think, oh, that's not nearly enough. But that 2 gallons a minute supported a lot of people. It supported a total of 5 humans in the same house. Plus, it supported 3 horses and a yard that we irrigated with sprinklers and other smaller animals, and we didn't ever have any problem because that 2 gallons a minute is actually 2,880 gallons a day every day, and we stored it, and then we used it from the storage, and so we always had a full storage tank. We really never had a problem. In fact, one time I left the hose on like an idiot, and it ran the storage system dry. As soon as I turned this hose off, the next day that storage system was full again, and we had plenty of water, and it did not cause a problem because that storage system created kind of a buffer between us and our existing well. Now, I'll give you a couple examples of where our technology has been used to help people, and I'm going to give you one example where we had a client from Arizona call us, and I just gave him some direction, did some research for him, it was free, and gave him some thought processes on it, and then I'll tell you a little more about that. Anyway, so one of the first examples, this is kind of early, it's about 2004. We had a client named Wendy in Toledo, Washington, and she had 5 wells drilled on her property. She was trying to get enough water so she could sell the property. But of those 5 wells, the driller said 4 of them were not productive. They said there was no water, and then only 1 of them produced about 2 to 3 gallons a minute. And you know, if I went just off of face value and said, okay, that driller said there was only a small amount of water in one of the wells and the rest of them were dry, I could make an assumption that the aquifer is not very good in that area. But I'm kind of a bit of a researcher, so I did some additional research and looked at wells in the area. And what I found was actually almost all the wells drilled in the area, except for on her property, and she was in the same kind of general formation as all these other wells, except for on her property, all the other wells, almost all of them were successful. Now, some of them are lower producing, but you know, we could talk about that maybe in a future video. But nonetheless, most of them were successful. So anyway, fast forward a little bit, we went out and did some exploration, and in one of the locations we did exploration, I did a line of sounding. I think there were 5 in a line, and we found that in that line there was, you could really easily see an aquifer. It was only about 60, maybe 70 feet deep, so really shallow, and that actually was supported by the history or the area information of the other wells, and there was quite a few other wells in the area. It showed that there was an aquifer there, and then I did some additional research and found out actually the aquifer in the area actually has a name. That's how big the aquifer is and how well known it is. It's called the Logan Hill Formation. And that formation is pretty consistent and it produces water. Anytime the driller does everything right, that aquifer is going to produce pretty good water. Anyway, so we found a place to drill a well. We gave her some information, told her the maximum drill depth. And then before I left the property, I actually walked down a little dirt road and then down an embankment. And I went down about 50 or 60 feet to the next, what you might call a bench, from up where I was. So I was up on the high part of the property, and I walked to a bench to one of the lower parts of the property. And right along that bench, right near the bottom, there was a spring, and the water was trickling out of the spring for hundreds of feet in either direction at the base of this little cliff. And water was just trickling out. So I felt pretty confident. Obviously, the equipment said there's water. There's water coming out of the hillside, just not very far from where I tested. It was just up about 55 or 60 feet. Anyway, so she hired the same driller that drilled the 4 non-productive wells, failed wells, and then one mildly productive well. I think they said it was 2 or so gallons a minute. And they came out. She wasn't there. They drilled the well. And then they called her and said, hey, this well's dry. Well, they drilled the well to 120 feet, double what we said, 2 times what we said the depth was, and then they filled it with bentonite, which is a plugging material. It's a type of clay, and then they just left. Anyway, she called me, and we had a discussion, and then fast forward about a year and a half, we came back out. She wanted to get this property sold, and we came back out, did a little bit of testing right where they drilled this dry well. And then we convinced her to hire a different drilling contractor, and that drilling contractor uses a different type of drilling system. It's a bit slower process. We confirmed there was water there. This new drilling contractor came out and drilled within 15 feet of that dry, we'll call it a failed well. And when that well was drilled, they drilled to 60 feet, and that well produced 6 gallons a minute within 15 feet of a non-productive well. Anyway, the equipment showed the water was there for the first time and the second time. Unfortunately for her, the second driller drilled a well and found the water she needed. And I'll give you another example. Here's another really good example of where an independent drilling contractor, an independent operator of our system, used the GF6 to do some exploration in California. And this operator was hired to do a project on an existing farm. The existing farm had a lot of production wells, but they needed another one in a specific area. And so he was fortunately able to calibrate the GF6, which was the original technology that we were using back in about 2014, 2015. So he used the GF6 to calibrate the equipment to an existing production well. As far as I know, the well produced around 1,000 gallons a minute. It's about 1,000 feet deep, so it's a pretty deep well, and it produced a lot of water. So he calibrated the equipment, then he went to the new area, completed the testing on the new area, came up with estimates based on the calibration, and his estimates to the property owner were 1,100 feet maximum drill depth, and between 1,350 and 1,650 gallons a minute. So 1,350 gallons to 1,650 gallons. The property owner, the farmer, decided to have a test well drilled. They drilled the test well. I believe it was approximately $40,000 to drill the test well. They drilled that test well, and then they did what they call an E-log. And I'll explain the E-log in a future video, but the E-log is supposed to determine where their production zone was. In spite of that, and that's what it's used for, the E-log operator decided he could determine yield. And he told the property owner, the farmer, that this well was only going to produce 300 gallons a minute. So the property owner, farmer, had a decision to make. Do I trust the E-log operator from a drilling contract that he used multiple times in the area, or do I trust this independent operator of the GF6 seismoelectric technology? Which one do I trust? I had a bit of a conversation with this independent operator, and I gave him some advice. He shared that information with the property owner / farmer, and the farmer decided to take a chance on this independent operator's information. They proceeded to drill a production well. That production well was drilled to about 1,100 feet, plus or minus, and when it was all said and done and pump tested and developed properly, which development is a critical step in the drilling process, that well produced 1,750 gallons a minute, 1,750 gallons a minute, about 100 gallons a minute more than our maximum production rate, and about 1,400 gallons a minute more than the E-log operator said that well was going to produce. So ultimately, the GF7 was correct in the estimates. Now again, calibration really helps a lot, especially in those large volume production areas. If you guys have a situation where you're really struggling with trying to determine where you might need water, we would love to help you. So I have a question from Rebecca McBride Miller. It says she's in Northern California. Let me read this. I'm sorry. I'm gonna see more. She's in Northern California. She is in a house that's built in 1968. She's on the same well, and the water level is about 55 feet, and the pump's set at about 90. Her neighbor's well went dry about 8 years ago, and he had a new one drilled, which works. Will our well run dry? Well, that is a really good question. So I had almost this exact same question from somebody else in California, a different part of California, not that far north. And she was really stressing because there was a drought condition where she was at, and she was super stressing. Her well produced good water, but she was just really kind of a bit panicked about, is that well going to continue to produce water? So I talked her through a process. Actually, I developed a document. Because of her, I developed a document about how an operator or how a property owner can complete their own pump test. And Rebecca, if you message us, I will send you that document for free. You can also, if you'd like to know more about the drilling process, I was going to mention this at the end of the video, but you can also go to our website, aqualocate.com, and you can, just as soon as you get to that page, there's a book on there. I'm not trying to convince you to buy my book. There's information on there about a book I wrote on the drilling process. It would be really probably useful information for you. It just help you learn more about the drilling process and some of the things you have to consider before you drill a well. But I will send you, if you email me or message us, private message us here on our website or on our Facebook page, I'll send you a document about how to do your own pump test. I'll also send you information on the basic steps, the basic drilling steps, and if you provide me with additional details, I could talk you through any concerns you might have. I'd love to help you. It's hard to answer all your questions here. I really wish I could, but I need more specifics, and I would love to help you for free. Anyway, let me talk about one more. I'm going to talk about at least one more. We'll see how it goes. So I had a client years ago call me from the Scottsdale, Arizona area, and the reason why he called is he was kind of getting pushback from a handful of drillers in his area. He was trying to get a well drilled on his property in Scottsdale, and the drillers were telling him, "Oh, you're not going to get water. There's a lot of dry wells in the area, blah blah blah." So I told him, give me the address. I'll do some research, and then I'll tell you what I think, and to tell you if you maybe need our help or what you need to know. So I got the address. I did a whole bunch of research on his property. Probably took me a whole 10 minutes. And after I got all the research, what I found was there were certainly quite a few non-productive wells drilled in the area, but all those wells were drilled really shallow, about 400, 500 feet, and they just weren't productive because in this particular area, it appeared, based on the research, that the aquifer was actually more like 1,000 feet. So about 1,000 to 1,200 feet was where the main aquifer system was in this particular part or area around Scottsdale. I'm not saying all of Scottsdale is like this. I don't know. I mean, areas change over distance. Anyway, I called him back and I said, here's what you need to know. And I gave him all the information, and I told him, listen, what you need to do is be prepared to drill up to 1,200 feet. You call a driller and you say, hey, listen, I'm willing to put some risk out there. I'll pay you to drill up to 1,200 feet. I just need you to do that and drill a well. And then about a month later or so after that phone call, he contacted me back and he said, you were right. I don't need to be right, by the way. It's not me. It's the research. I'm just good at doing research. And the research showed there was an aquifer at about 1,100, 1,200 feet. I don't remember exactly how deep they drilled, but it was less than 1,200, but it was pretty deep, over 1,000. And they ended up with what the driller reported is 20 gallons a minute. Now, you can't put a lot of weight in initial production, but at the end of the day, if it's anywhere near 20 gallons a minute, that's plenty of water for a household. Again, to what I said before, a household uses between 200 and 400 gallons a day, every day in the United States. 20 gallons a minute is 20 times that. 20 gallons a minute. If 1 gallon a minute is 1,440 gallons a day, 20 gallons is 20 times that. It's a lot. It's like 28,000 gallons a day. It's a ton of water. So if it is, in fact, even half of 20 gallons a minute, that's plenty of water for a home. And if he's smart, he doesn't irrigate anything in Arizona because it's a desert. You just put some cactus on your landscape and put some decomposed granite around, and you're good. You don't have to water outside. Just fill a pool and call it a day. Go swimming. One other success that I'm going to talk about briefly was from an independent operator in Idaho. And she did some work in 2024 for a client. She did 9 soundings and on the property near Orofino, Idaho. Research prior to the project showed that the wells range from 120 feet to 460 feet. So there's a huge range in potential. And the reported wells are ranging from 30 gallons a minute to 260 gallons a minute. Again, a massive range. So this property owner wasn't sure where to stop drilling, things like that. So the geology in the area was described, they called it the Columbia River Basalt Group, which is pretty common in this area. It's a volcanic type rock. Anyway, she completed the testing, and she found that 2 of the sites showed the best potential, and she reported that the maximum depth was going to be about 150 feet and gave an estimate of 8 to 15 gallons a minute. So the property owner chose that site, whatever the best site was. I think it was site 8 or site 9. Ended up drilling a well at site 8 or 9. The driller drilled to 168 feet, but if you read the well log, which I did, the well log showed that the production rate was actually, or the end of production was about 150 feet. So she was pretty dead on. And that well produced, per the driller, again, 14 gallons a minute. A very respectable well. Less than the lowest in the area, but the best drill target on this particular property. There's a lot more to discuss. I could probably talk about this all day, and you'd probably click off way before I got done talking. So if you have any questions, if I can help you in any way, if you guys need some help, if you know somebody that needs some help, have them message us. We'd love to help you Again, there's a book I wrote on water well drilling, a comprehensive guide to the proper well construction. If you go to our website, aqualocate.com, you can find a link to that book. If you direct message us, I'll give you a short version, I mean a very, like a one-page version of that book for free, and it'll give you some basic information. The book is much more detailed. It's easy to read. It's not complicated. And it looks like somebody else wants one question.
Athena.
Okay, so this is a question from Athena. She says, why do drillers charge by the foot and you don't? Well, let's see, how do we say that? So, I guess drillers charge by the foot theoretically because that's the easiest way to kind of capture the cost of drilling. But what you probably don't know, and most people don't, is once a driller, depending on the area you're in, once a driller gets to about 100 feet, so once they break that 100-foot mark, and this varies by area, sometimes it's less, sometimes a little more. After that, on that particular well, they're in profit. So every foot beyond a certain depth, they're making what you might classify as pure profit, which is why they pay their operators a bonus for every foot beyond this, whatever this magical depth profit margin is. So in most, if you could figure this out, most drillers will pay a bonus to their operators for every foot beyond a certain depth. Anyway, why they drill by the foot, like I said, I think that's just a common way of billing. I don't know the history on it. We don't charge by the foot because what we try to do as best we can is we have a minimum amount of testing we do depending where you're located. If you're close to us, it's 10 soundings. If you're further away, it's typically 20 or 30 soundings. But we don't try to convince you to do more than that. On large properties, one of the things I say to most property owners is there's only one way to eat an elephant, and that's one bite at a time. When you have a huge piece of property, why test all of it? If we do our minimum number of sounding sites on a particular property and we find what you need, then that's all you need. We're done. If we don't find what you need, the report will say so, and then we can discuss if we need to come back. We're not trying to convince you to have us come back. We really want to find water the very first time. I wish I could answer the specific question why well drillers charge by the foot, but I think it's just an industry standard, and they kind of copycat each other, to be honest with you. I think the industry kind of leans in that direction. And Rebecca, I can't wait to talk to you and see what we can do to help, and so hopefully we can alleviate your stresses on your existing well based on what your neighbor experienced, and we can mitigate that in some way, or at least take your stress level down. Listen, I've exceeded my 20 minutes. Again, I could talk all day about this. Again, this is Ervin with AquaLocate. I would love to talk to you guys, see what I can do to help you out. If you have any questions at all, I'll do my best to answer them immediately. We try to get them answered within 24 hours or less. You can always call us at 800-251-2920. We'd love to talk to you. Again, if you saw this video and you think it might be helpful for a friend or somebody you know, please share it. We'd love to help you. All right, take care, you guys. Have a good one. See you next week.